Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to this fourth episode of Open Projects, The Journey. It's a
Hey,
journey.
everyone.
Yeah, hello. I'm here with Amel and Shema, of course, as usual, as you would expect. My name is Ciro, also as usual. And welcome to The Journey. The name of the show is called The Journey because, just to remind you, we're making a game here. We're making a small game demo, if you want. And this show is basically looking at the journey that we are going through as we make this demo. And this demo is also an open source project, which means that you can contribute to it. Which is it's quite interesting, and it's proving to be a journey in itself as well. But we'll go through all of the contributions that we have on the project later on. Before we go any further, Shem and Amel, do we want to introduce somebody?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a fourth today.
Yeah,
We have
guest.
a special guest today. So let's see if he's still there. And he is there.
Yeah.
Hey, Andy.
Hi.
So
Hello,
we have a special
how's it going?
guest today. Yeah, Andy Touch. Andy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I mean, you did it so well, but I'll add some more truth to it. So my name is Andy. I work at Unity Technologies alongside Chiro, Amel, and Chema. And I'm a content developer. So part of my job is getting the Unity features, experimenting with them, having fun with them, breaking them, reporting the breaks back, and building demos and then teaching people about them. So through blog posts, videos, stuff like this. Obviously everything online now. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
That's actually, so me and Andy go back a long way, right, Andy? When did you join Unity?
I joined mid-2013, so I've been at Unity for quite a while. A Unity dinosaur, people sometimes say.
I joined in 2016, so I Andy was one of the first people at Unity that I met in some events back in Italy when we were still allowed to travel, and that was our job for a while, right? Like me and Andy, we were like traveling all over the world and going to conferences, going to events, and meeting developers. And Andy, we like to remind people that that's the reason actually why we do open projects. I mean, one of the reasons is that this year, since we cannot travel, we came up with this initiative where we're trying to connect with the developer community in this way. So rather than meeting them in person because we can't, then we connect online. And instead of just us doing talks, we figured that a nice way would be to make something together and have everybody be able to collaborate and to take part in this adventure, in this journey.
Yeah, so that's why we started Open Project, to be more in connection with people, to have to talk with the community better, to be to help them achieve what they want to do with Unity.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, one of the goals with Open Project is to have a project which is a bit more advanced, I guess, than what we usually do.
Yeah.
And something that people can jump into and explore. And explore, I would say, at their own pace, right? Like the idea is that they could discover the project like 1 month after it started, or maybe at the end. Mm-hmm. And then they can rewatch the streams, they can watch the devlogs, which is another type of videos which we haven't talked about, but we will see one later. Or they can just come to the forums and have a chat. Like the project is going to live for a while, and that's why again this stream is called The Journey, right? So we're 2 months in, still lots
already.
to do. Yeah. Yes.
Time goes fast.
Yeah, time goes fast. Still lots to do. Andy, why are you here then?
That's a good question. I didn't just hack into your stream. So I've been aware of the Open Project for a little while. Chiro's talking about it and putting together the plan. And it was an interesting thing to join because, as Chiro said, one thing that we noticed that is very key in traveling to studios and traveling to places is sharing knowledge and sharing wealth is how we all learn. It's how like I got into making games. It's how Chiro did. It's how pretty much everyone does, is by learning from other people, learning from people who know how to do that thing that you don't know how to do, or learning from other people who come from different backgrounds and different technical knowledge and technical perspectives. So I'm joining the stream because I've contributed to the Open project recently, and Chiro's asked me to sort of demonstrate two of the systems that I've added, two of many, hopefully, in the future, and sort of explain how. Yeah, I don't want to sign up too early.
No. I mean, no spoilers to the ones that you're going to show today.
Sure.
Yeah.
So two things I wanted to contribute that I feel would help the project and help other people to learn and how it's set up for their own projects as well, because that's kind of part of the reason why people can study this project and take knowledge away from it.
Nice. Do we want to just give a small introduction to the project? Again, for the ones who are joining today for the first time. Amel, do you want to help us do that?
Yeah, so I was gonna say, if you want to do like Andy and contribute in the project, here is where it lives. So if you go to the GitHub repository that Chiro is now showing in the screen, you can of course fork this project so you get like your own copy where you can make the changes or the contributions you want to make. And once you think that they are good to go, you just open what we call the PR, a pull request. In case you don't know what a pull request is, don't worry. Chiro, maybe if you show us in the forum, we have a pin thread that is related to the contribution. So here, actually, I think Chiro added new videos to help you get started. And you can also find more information on how to clone the repository and get started if you are still new with this in the journey. And now, while we are in the forum, if we go back to the initial page, we can see all the different threads that are related to the different features that you can work on. And every feature usually is linked in the decks or in the cards in the decks of Codex. So if we go to Codex, we can see that we have different decks for the different topics, I would say, in the game. So one for the code, one for the effects, one for design and narrative. And inside of each deck, you can find the different tasks that are represented by cards. So the ones that are already done, we usually try to include the pull request link, so you can find exactly where which PR were merged for that one. So you can see those for the previous live streams or the current live stream for today also can be visualized. So those actually decks that Chiro is showing now show you the different tasks that have been done for every stream. And
this
from
is
here
basically,
you can see which,
this is both a picture of the past and the future, right? Like the future is represented by all the tasks that are in these decks, which are yet to be done, especially the ones in gray. Nobody has taken them yet. Actually, here we have some that I need to update. But as Amel was saying, like just feel free to browse this roadmap, which you'll find link in the video actually, and take a look at something you wanna make. One new thing which I introduced last week, I think, is this little green dot here. You see, this is a label which marks the tasks which we think are easier to make. So if you feel like intimidated, look out for this green dot, because it's gonna tell you like the tasks that are relatively easier versus the others, which might be like a bit more complex. But just read through them, because all of them, they include like a description. So you're gonna see what you could contribute on. Yeah,
totally. So it's really easy to see which tasks that are available and which one are pretty, I would say, more simple to get started with. So everyone can actually contribute in the project, no matter the level that you have on the skills, I would say.
And then the idea is that every card has a link to a forum thread. So if you click this one, then you go back to the forum and you will land into one of these threads which are marked official. And in here, we hope that you would discuss the basically the task with other people. And people are doing it, and it's actually really cool. I'm just going to scroll very fast because I don't want to spoil, but I'll show you this thread later as we go through the community contributions. So to recap, the repository is where you get the project, the forum is where you discuss the tasks, and the roadmap is where you can see the tasks. And actually, the roadmap also contains a game design wiki. So in here, you can basically learn all about the game, all about the story and the characters in the game, and then get a whole picture of what we're trying to build. So these 3 things are linked in the video description below and in every video that we make. So it's not going to be hard to find them.
Yes.
Sorry to chip in, but as like an outsider, it's really cool to see that this is an open project initiative that has a structure and cards and organization, rather than it saying, hey, let's make, a platformer, and then it's kind of like a mad scramble. It's pretty cool that all this system's already set up, so you can look at the cards and discuss on the forums. And I've been following since it began a lot of the forum threads and lurking and seeing the discussions.
Managing the expectations and the mostly the expectations of multiple people, right, coming from different backgrounds and different skill levels is the challenging side. So that's what we're trying to do, to give like like a framing to the project, and then people can still like get out of it, but at least we have a direction that we're working towards together, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's going well. We have a lot of stuff yet to do, but also a lot of stuff done, and I'm really amazed by the contributions of the community, and we're gonna see a few of them later on. But before we look at the future, shall we look at the past? Because one thing is, we have done 3 live streams until now. So we just want to remind you the things we covered and where to find them. And we put together a small video for that. So previously on the journey.
Yes.
In the first episode, I covered the toon shading. So if you're interested in cartoon shading, in shader graph and custom shader graphs, just go back to the first episode. You'll find this explanation in there. As you can see here, I was showing the shader graph from the inside if you want, and all the customization that we did to it to get the toon shading and the outline in place. So again, first episode, you'll find it there.
Great. And previously also in the open project, The Journey, we have introduced the scriptable objects events, which combine scriptable objects and event to create a powerful system so we can avoid using singletons. And you can see examples of using the raise method without any parameters, like when we exit the game, or with one parameter or more parameters, like the example that we used for the scene loading. And here we can see the scene loading test in the editor, where we have shown this in the last episode. In the episode 2, yeah.
Yeah, during the episode 2 also we showed the UI wireframing and how our game would feel like, what are the scenes and how to go from one scene to another. This discussion actually fired a discussion about inventory and how to create a perfect inventory and what is the story behind it, etc. So as you can see here, we have our board that is on Miro. You can still find it there, and we also have the discussion on the threads, and you can go there and discuss with us.
Super cool. Miro is a tool that we use a lot. In episode 2, I also showed the state machine, which is actually a community contribution. And I used a diagram, as you can see here, because it's a bit of a complicated thing. And I really recommend you go and take a look at it. It uses scriptable object to drive basically the structure of the state machine, which is then the thing that powers our characters, including the player character. Mm-hmm. And it's going to power more in the game.
Yeah, then in the episode 3, we also used Miro, as you can see, and we created our game design and the process, how to go, and the game flow, with all the actions in a high level view. Also, we will discuss that later, but today we are going to see that part again.
Nice. Very long section.
Yeah.
Amel,
episode 3.
Yeah, in episode 3 we also introduced the dialogue and the cutscene system, which also was later used by Shema for the localization package. But for the cutscene, we have shown the different interactions that you can have with the system. We also showed few, I would say, advanced use cases of timeline that Shiro highlighted. So if you want to know more about these parts, feel free to go to episode 3 and also have a look on this diagram that we have explained in details.
Nice. And
Yeah, we use this. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to say, Amel mentioned it. I also shown the customization of timeline and how to create a custom timeline track, including the code. So if you're interested in that, episode 3 is your place to go.
Yeah, we also used it for localization, and we actually shown how we will be using this package to for all the systems, and this one was the first one. So you can just change the text into localized string and use it in any system that you create.
In French,
Yeah, and
we're
we did-
localizing the game in French here.
We
Actually, English
localized
and
it in
French is the first 2 languages that we're going to use to demonstrate this system.
Yeah.
Yes.
Episode 3 was very full. I also showed something about the input system. So if you're curious about the new Unity input system and some advanced use cases that we do with the action maps that you can see here, then jump back to episode 3 and you're going to find it there. And that's all. Basically, this is the stuff that we have shown in the previous episodes. One thing that we've done, we also added the chapters to the videos. So if you jump back to the live streams, even though they're very long, you're going to find the chapters and then you can jump directly to the section that you're interested in. And the live streams for now are like a manual, if you want. So they're a good introduction to this project. But we're actually putting something together as well, which I want to show you here on the screen. So if you go to the repo and then you click on wiki, you're going to see that there's a little wiki for the project, which we're going to populate more and more. And in here, you can see that there's exploring the project, playing the game, creating a new playable scene. So it's a little bit of an instruction manual on how to get started and contribute.
Great.
I think we're more or less good.
I think we showed like a good recap, I would say, of where to find everything that we already discussed in the previous episodes. And maybe it's time to start getting the fresh content and the new updates.
We looked at the past. Let's look at the new stuff. Shema, first stop. Do we want to talk about the game design?
Yeah. Let's talk about the game design again, and let's jump on Miro if we can open the board.
Sure.
Yeah. As you can see, we integrated the diagram that we talked about last time.
Oops. 1 second. Every time I present it jumps to the...
Yeah.
No worries. So as I said, we integrated the diagram that we showed last time, but in a different way, in a different order. We talked about it, and this is actually the high-level view of the actions. So we will start with the fight mechanics, and then we will go to the cooking mechanics. And after that, we will discover the character interactions, and this will actually be the tutorial. So, and for each high-level action, high-level main interaction, we will have subtasks, as you can see. So, for example, for discovering the fighting mechanics, we will find a critter. We will have the movement tutorial, find a critter, fight it, and then have a reward. And this actually, if you want more details, you can go on the Miro board. You will have the link for it on the forums, and you can see it more in detail. So, as I said, we created this diagram to show the high-level actions that we will have. And in this forum, in this thread that Shiro just showed us, we want people to go there and to propose some diagrams at what they see the mission would look like. So for example, we have here 2 propositions of diagram on what the missions that the player will play will look like, just to avoid having multiple written descriptions that maybe we can't read in time, or that we will miss, or that we will just skip for a reason or another. So we thought that having them in form of diagrams would be better for the team and better for the community to participate and to give feedbacks on them. But before having these diagrams, we wanted to be sure that everyone was okay with the result of it. So yeah, come join us in the discussion. It's called Game Flow Diagram.
Yeah. And I wanted to say, sometimes we, as I said before, we try to give the direction to this project, but then we feel like we're like guiding it too much. So in this case, we want to really open the discussion to the community. And as Shema pointed out, we can't make a million different games. So we need to set like a framework. And that's what she was talking about when she was mentioning this diagram. So we want to first create the framework, and then we start filling it with information. And the information, because we've seen a lot of text being written on the forum, but we want to try and condensate it in kind of like action points, right? And see if they can be reduced to the actions that you actually perform in the game, which are then the ones that the coders or the programmers will have to code. And we're limited to a small set of actions.
Exactly. We will still have text. For example, I don't know if we want to describe in details one of the diagrams, or if we feel like something is better if it's written, and we can still have notes, stickers that you can add in Miro or any other software that you will use for your diagrams. But in the meantime, having it shown with in a picture in a diagram would be better than having it just written in blank text.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, as you can see here, the game loop would be to have missions, to interact with characters, and to win prizes. This is the main core game loop that we have. And one of the missions would be the main mission that we need to interact with one character. And once we achieve that long mission, we will have the winning prize, the pickable that will help us win the game.
So this is kind of like the winning condition of the whole game demo, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. So yeah, jump into the discussion again. It's in the forums. It's called Game Flow Diagram, and you'll see where we're heading to, I guess.
Yeah. I also think it's really like easier to somehow get the whole picture when you have a diagram rather than just like spending a lot of time reading. So
it will help us like spot potential issues or incongruencies,
yeah,
definitely.
Yeah,
Nice.
thanks a lot, Shema, for this insight.
Thank you.
The winning recipe is definitely going to be Chirio's going to sneak in some of his secret recipes, right?
It will be a pineapple pizza.
No.
Oh no.
Okay, I'm canceling the stream.
That's
Stop
the
streaming.
game. That's the game over recipe.
Stop streaming.
The
Bye.
poisonous
Like-
recipe.
No, it's not. It's not gonna be. That's the only certainty that I have on this project. And if somebody in the chat, I'm not seeing the chat on YouTube now, but if you're taking sides for the pineapple pizza,
Some
That's
people
the
said
door.
close it.
No,
some people say close it.
All pull requests go
Can you
to
imagine?
Jiro, so yeah.
All right, cool. Let's move on. I think I'm gonna
Chiro-
present. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, like, you want to maybe present something about one of the, I would say, big systems that we have in the game, and something that we actually need to have in all the games, I would say, which is the audio system. I heard you have news and updates on it.
Yes, I have news on the audio system. So let's see. So let me jump into the editor. Actually, let me first mention like what we're trying to achieve with the audio system. The whole point is very similarly to the dialogue and cutscene system, we want to create something which can orchestrate everything that happens in that field, in this case in the audio field, and at any point can take control and can, for example, stop all sounds or pause all sounds and then resume them later. So we wanted to have an audio system or an audio manager, which is a class, is of course a mono behavior. And similarly to the scene loading and to the cutscene system, the issue was like, where do we put this? And my thinking was that we are going to put this into a scene which is loaded at the beginning, which is called initialization. And then it not survives, but it lives throughout the whole game. And it manages the audio for the whole game. And that's going to give us one advantage, for example, which is to be able to play music across scenes. So if we move from one scene to the other, the music will continue playing without interruption, which, you know, it's something that you would expect from a professional game. So let's take a look at the thing in the editor. So the thing that I was mentioning, the audio system basically lives in this scene called initialization, which is here. If I drag it into the hierarchy, we can see it at the same time as my audio example scene. The audio manager will be here. And as you can see, it's a mono behavior. And the thing that this thing is doing is, it's number one, it's spawning a pool of objects, of audio sources, which is here. It's configured through a scriptable object. This is actually a solution made by one of the community members, Dave Rodriguez. And so it spawns a pool of audio sources ready to be used for any audio request. And then it does this. It listens to some channels, some event channels. And the event channels is exactly the same thing that Amel demoed in episode 2, right, Amel?
Yes, episode 2.
Which is basically these scriptable objects that act as channels, if you want. So there's an event which is fired on these channels, and then whoever is listening to is going to react to them. So in this case, for example, we have a music event channel and an SFX event channel. The audio manager listens to them, which means that there could be, for example, if I show you, let me see, this object here, this cauldron, which has like a particle system and a light, and then it has some audio that it wants to play. So if I select the Fire SFX ambient loop, which is, should have focused, which is here, this object is the one that requests the audio to be played. So you see it's called audio queue, and it fires the event on the, it's here, on this channel. So it means that this object is gonna fire an event on this channel and say, I wanna play a sound, and then whoever is listening, in this case, the audio manager, listening to that channel, is gonna pick up that event and play the sound for this object. So it's gonna take one of the audio sources from the pool and use it and enables it. And actually, let me give you a small demonstration. So if I press play and I disable first like a few objects, I press play. Now I'm playing the game. Oops, camera movements. So I can move around, and then I hope you can hear the sound of this fire burning, which is like super low. Mm-hmm. Let me give you another example, which is a bit more loud. I think for the live stream is better. There we go. So you see this green sphere. Inside there's like a sound emitter, and if I get the camera close, you will hear this kind of like choo-choo sound. And that's a sound that's being requested by the object, and is being picked up by the audio manager. And I mean, it's obviously a 3D sound, so if I get further away, then you stop hearing it. And so the point here is that this object is requesting the sound. Then the audio manager, which is here, is listening to the sound, is going to the pool, and is basically, and you will see the pool is here, and you see there's one sound emitter, which is the one that the audio manager is controlling. So this one is the one that's currently playing the sound. And for example, if I were to enable the Fire as effects, then you will get like another sound emitter and so forth. And this pool obviously can be pre-warmed, so all the sound emitters are created beforehand, and then every time there's a new sound, it will spawn a new sound emitter or use it. So for instance, if I go through this portal, you will hear this sound of like magic. And the idea here, for example, is that this object is playing the sound on demand, right? So it's not just a loop, but it's every time I collide with this object, then it sends a message to the audio manager and plays the sound. Let me actually stop the music while I do this. I think it's a good practice.
Yeah.
But the sounds are a bit low, I guess. With this portal, actually, we're using something very interesting, which I want to show you. So it works exactly the same as I was saying. So it just requests the sound from the audio manager. But then the interesting thing which this whole audio system uses, we don't just play a audio clip. So if we go into the folder and we look at one of the audio clips here, for example, these ones, like Mechanism 1, 2, 3, and we can obviously test them and listen to them. Yes, that's the sound that I was meaning before. We don't just play those, but we actually encapsulate these into another data structure, which is called audio cue. And if I go to audio cues, you'll see it. So for instance, here, the choo-choo sound that we were listening to is this one. It's a scriptable object. And as you can see, the scriptable object has the ability to have basically multiple elements. So for instance, I could have two of them, and each one of these elements can have an audio an audio clip. In this case, there was only one, so this means that this audio cue will produce only one sound. But if I go, for instance, to Mechanisms is an audio cue that has 4 sounds, and in this case, it plays them sequentially, but I could ask them to be played randomly. So it means that if any object requests the play of this audio cue, one of these 4 sounds will be picked at random. Or we could do random no immediate repeat, which means that, for example, if the first time it plays sound 0, then he's not going to play sound 0 again on the second instance. And as you can imagine, this is very useful for use cases like footsteps or jumps. When you have like 2 or 3 sounds for a jump and you just want to request a random one every time and you don't want to hear the repetition. So this is super interesting. But for instance, in cases like this one, it's also interesting to create composite sounds where you have, for instance, 4 sounds here, which are picked at random. And then on top of those, you have another sound, which is always the same. So this allows you to composite sounds in interesting ways. And this means that anyone can go in here and go like create audio cue. And then you go in here and you say like this audio cue has, like 3 sets of sounds. And the first one has, this audio clip here. And the second one has maybe 2 audio clips. And he uses like, this test effect, S effect, and this test S effects, and he plays them at random. And so you can really start and go in here and create like your own interesting sound effects that then can be picked up by the audio manager and played. And the cool thing about the audio manager is because here we have multiple sounds, we need multiple audio sources. And that's why we have the pool mechanism. That is more or less the idea. So if we go to, I want to show you on Miro actually, because I made a small diagram. And the idea here is that, as you can see, so the audio manager is a mono behavior, right? As usual, it's like kind of like this general manager that lives in the initialization scene. And then the audio manager manages the pool that I mentioned before, which has these objects which have an audio source on top. And then we have these objects in the scene. For example, the portal that I was walking through has a collider, which sends the event to the audio cue. And the audio queue finds the scriptable objects that he wants to play, a configuration of sounds, and then it requests the sound queue on the event channel. So as I mentioned before, if I go back to Unity, the event channel here, so it requests the sound, the audio manager, which is listening to the event channel, will pick up the event and go to the pool and then find the appropriate audio sources, which are like free to play, and enable them and play the sound. And then when the sound is finished, they get returned to the pool in a very like a traditional pool fashion, if you want. That's the idea. And then, you can have, for example, buttons in the UI. They can do exactly the same thing. They want to play an audio cue. So they grab the data, they grab the configuration. For example, in this case, the configuration will be a 2D sound. And then they fire the event. And then the audio manager will play the sound for them. So it's all an integrated system. And, the reality is we're still working on it. So there are a few things which I want to personally iron out in the way this system works. But there's going to be a lot of depth once we're done with it. I also want to mention that the idea of the audio queue, the way this data is structured, was suggested by Peter77 on the forums. He goes by QA Jesus sometimes. Is one of the users. It's a very long-standing user on the forums. He gives a lot of feedback to Unity in a good way. I mean, he's very organized in that. And he suggested this system. And then he didn't make a PR, but I stole it. But don't worry, Peter, you'll be credited.
Yes.
And if you want to come back and make tweaks to it, super happy. But that's what I got from your system. So I hope it's what you had in mind.
Thanks a lot, Ciro, for introducing this new audio system. And we got actually a couple of questions in the chat. I'm going to start with this one from Peter Pascal. So he's asking if we have someone responsible for composing music and creating SFX.
We do. We have, like with the art, we have basically the idea is to start with something we contract from some contractor and form a base. So for instance, this person would create maybe the main theme, and then the community can chime in and work with like variations or alternate themes. But we wanted to kind of like set the course, because like with the graphics, if we just like outsource this, then we're gonna get a lot of variety, and it's gonna be hard to choose. It's gonna be hard to make sure that they fit together, right? So we do have a contractor for the music, which is working right now, and they're gonna produce something soon. So all the SFX and all the music that you hear in the sound in the game, in the project, are actually temporary. And Andy, you should know what they are, because then if you checked, they're UFH02 SFX. So they're from one
sound effects
from one past game of mine.
Pre-Unity.
Yeah.
This is the game where me and Ciro met through, which is true. So there's a nice. I guess it tells a nice story of reuse. Assets. When if they're in an old project, they still have use depending on the situation and circumstance. But I do that all the time. I go back to old code I've written like 5 years ago and still drag it up, and then I'm like, well, if it works, there's no.
Yeah, no, I just needed some sound effects to try out some stuff, and I own them, so I can put them in the project if I want. So that's the ones that you're gonna find if you pull the project right now. That's the sound effects and music are from an old game of mine. But yeah, soon we're gonna have some professionally made sound and music. But again, we want contributions. That's not to say that we're saying nobody's gonna make any more music or more sound effects. We will need more, especially sound effects. Ask what was the name? Peter Pascal, I think he was name.
Yeah. Peter Pascal asked us the question.
good
Yeah.
memory. Ask him if I mean, I'm asking him if
Yeah.
if he's a musician or a sound designer. Would be interesting.
Yeah.
So for the voices of the characters, are you going more Animal Crossing style, or are you doing voiceover
think
for the
so.
big
I think we're
Chiro?
gonna-
You know?
No, I don't think we're gonna have dubbing, like proper dubbing, because that would be super challenging, and then we would have to cover all of the languages. So we're probably gonna go with, as you said, like mumbling or speech. How do you call them? Speech fragments.
Sim style.
Yeah.
Yes,
Simlish,
Simlish, yeah.
Yeah, something
Create
like
a
that.
new language.
Chopish.
Shopish, yeah, that's a good language.
Chopish. Yeah, because we should remind everyone that the title of the game is Chop Chop, right?
Yes, finally the game has a title.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Are
and
there
you
more
guys
questions
voted for it.
in the chat?
Yeah, we do have questions about audio system. So someone is asking if the object makes a sound request to the audio manager and plays it. So do you add the sound at the start, and who controls the volume?
Good question. I'll show you something more from this system. So at the end of the day, the volume always goes through the audio mixer, right? So if we go to settings, audio, and audio mixer, at the end of the day, the volumes always goes through this one, which is the Unity default audio mixer. I basically created a few groups. They're called groups. And if you see the connections, you can basically see how there's a master group, which is the master, of course. There's a music one, which plays just music. And then there's an SFX one, which plays all SFX. And 3D and UI SFX are children, let's say. So they're sending audio to the SFX one. And then I exposed 3 parameters: master volume, music volume, and SFX volume. And basically, these 3 parameters control the volume of these 3 independently. So this means that through the game settings, you will be able to tweak those. In fact, I exposed them on the audio manager. And if you do this, it will tweak the volume of these 3 groups at runtime. But this is going to be connected to the game settings, right? So in the game settings, you will set, for example, master volume. And then this goes down. And this means that this goes down, which means that all of them go down. But this is the top of the kind of like of the funnel. But then you have fine control per SFX if you want. So for instance, if I go to the fire loop that I have here, and I go and take a look at the audio queue script that I mentioned before, the audio queue script has another scriptable object, which is a config. And the config is basically a replication of all the properties of an audio source. So in here you can create like presets if you want, and then reuse them on multiple SFX so that they all behave like in a similar way. So that's the idea. I hope this answered the question. And you can see here there's a volume, but this volume value is a multiplier, right? So if this is like 0.5, then sounds using this config will be at 0.5, but then that is multiplied by the volume in here, and they will stack up. So if this is also half, then that sound will be a very soft sound in a volume that is like half of the potential loudness. Hope it was clear. It's a bit of a complicated system, but we're trying to cater for different things, because if you think about it, when you play audio, you don't just play sounds, and they're not the same. Like for instance, we will have like scene sounds, like ambient sounds, and some of them will be looping, and some of them will be one-off, like the jump of the character, or some interactions. Then you will have sounds on the timeline, which are also need to be played. All of these sounds, when you press pause, they need to be stopped, and then when you press pause again, they need to be resumed. Right, so there needs to be something which like takes control of all of this. And to be fair, Unity already has something on the audio listener. It's called audio listener.pause, I think, and that will pause all the sounds. and then you can make some sounds ignore the audio listener. So for instance, you can see here as a parameter here, ignore listener's pause. So basically you can say that some sounds, when the audio listener pauses, don't pause. So we can use that to drive this behavior. But again, there's more sophistication to that. There's UI sounds. Then we have the case, for instance, when, and this is something, I mean, Shema, you can decide about. When I press the button to open the inventory, does the game pause?
I don't think it needs to pause. I think that you can't open the inventory when you are fighting. So, and if you are interacting with people, or if you have something that is working in the background, you don't need to pause it to open the inventory. So I don't think we will have a pause when the inventory opens.
But okay, yeah, we need to think about this, because this brings a lot of like consequences. The other question is when you go and cook at the, for example, this cauldron, right, that I had here on screen. You go here and you press the button, and then the inventory opens because you want to cook. Does the game pause? You know, like imagine there's an NPC that's like running behind you. Do they like freeze in their tracks, or do they keep going around? That's something that we need to discuss, but that influences a lot, like both animations and sounds.
Yeah.
True.
Maybe Andy's gonna solve this for us. Just because.
Going to do a dramatic slow motion. So as you're going to cook, someone behind you is running Chariots of Fire style.
That would be nice,
Slowly.
actually, to have a character freeze or just move in slow motion when you have the inventory open. Let's ask the community. What do you think?
I think a lot of games where you can equip items have that kind of slow down and almost pseudo pause. Like
there's a big difference though between like slow down and pause, right? Like we need to think what that means.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, you're raising a good point that because these design decisions are still being made, you need to make the audio manager be flexible for what the end result is going to be. Like, do you want to control it when things are paused or not? And you obviously have the difference between reactive sound effects and background music, and persistent sound effects like birds in the trees and wind and things like this. That if you're cooking, you want to still be playing in the background, like something out of Breath of the Wild, right, where you can cook and you can still hear these sounds.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah,
makes sense. Anyway, if people have input on this, please come to the forums. We have an audio system discussion going on. Quite active as well. So please bring your thoughts to the forums. Download the game and try it out. Like explore the solution that we created. Maybe you have some ideas on it. Cool. If we don't have, do we have any other question? I don't see the chat.
So I think we have a similar question about, for instance, people asking if they can use the shaders. I guess the answer is yes, but they're asking also about the audio, for instance, files that we will provide. Will they be able to use them in their projects as well?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, everything that's covered by that's in this project is open source, right? So, and it's open source in the most open way, in the sense that it kind of like belongs to everyone as at the same on the same level. So once the files are in the project, then they can take them and use them in their commercial games even. So they can do what they want. And it's going to be interesting. I mean, some things I think in this project are a bit unique, like the characters and the, some models. But others, like some sound effects, will be reusable. So it could be an interesting mine of resources.
Yeah.
In a weird roundabout way, in watching that audio manager sort of explanation, I actually need an audio manager for another project I'm working at Unity. So I'm actually going to dig in and see if I can see how I can repurpose it for this other project.
No, I'm joking. It's open source for you too, Andy.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying, like by seeing this, it's kind of all looping around.
Yeah.
I think people in the chat also can relate. They're like, oh, I'm working on this project. I might also need to pick something from this project. And I would say that's one of the reasons we made it open for everyone, I guess. So that's a good point, Andy.
Yeah, please do. I mean, please
just-
reap any programming and resources from this project. That's one of the reasons why we're doing it.
Yeah. Before moving on to the next section, we do have still like quickly 2 questions, I would say, related to the audio manager. Someone is asking, doesn't the audio listener needs to be localized on the pig instead of the camera? And another question about, does the audio manager pick the right sound? So I guess,
The other
It's the right
question,
sound.
it's
Yeah.
how, I think. How does
how does, yeah, sorry.
yeah.
How does the audio manager pick the right sound?
I don't know if I get this one, but
So
I'm
if
gonna
you click, say, so for example, if you click a button in the UI that's supposed to make a ping sound, how does it know to play ping instead of, you know, a completely different sound to ping?
Yeah, so for instance, let's go back to this fire thing that I have here in the scene. So how does this fire object, which is an empty object with a script, know which sound to play? It's here in this script that, you know, orders, that basically fires the event to play the sound. So as you can see here, sound definition, it has audio cue. And then inside here, there's the object that I've shown before, which is a bundle of data if you want. So every audio cue, which is a requester of sounds, has a connection to one scriptable object, which then eventually has, you know, a reference to the S effect that's going to be played. So imagine a button. If I were to make a button, let me just like make one just quickly, right? So I go in here. Let me do UI button, right? I create a new button. I could potentially have an audio cue. And then in here, I would connect an audio cue from one of the existing ones. So let's say, I don't know, the choo-choo sound, right? And then I would, in the button, I could, for example, create the event and like drag this in here. I don't know actually if we expose. Yeah, we do. Play audio cue. Right, so I think this should actually be working. Would it be working? Let's try. Who knows? Actually, there's one mistake because the audio cue right now is using the 3D sound configuration, so I might actually drag the 2D sound configuration. Maybe make this button. This is a very dangerous live demo, by the way. I wasn't ready at all for this, so I don't know what I'm doing. No, the button is not working, but not the sound would work, but the button is not working because there's no event. What's it called? UI event.
Event system.
Yeah.
Event system, yes.
So I don't know if this will work, but I'm literally like doing random things. So the button works, the sound, I'm not sure. I need to configure it a bit better. You got me on the spot here.
So you already have your content for the next webinar, Jerry.
Yeah,
You have to get it fixed in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean it is working. If you see here, if I click the button, there's like sound emitters getting created, so it's like
Yeah.
the audio manager is picking it up. It's just not audible, and I don't know if it's a mistake I made in the configuration, but it's doable. So the idea is that any object, even a button, can fire an event and request a sound from an audio cue, and that's the sound that's going to be played.
Yes.
I'm just going to remove everything I destroyed in the scene.
Some people say let the community fix it for you.
I mean,
If you
actually,
want to.
no, I mean, we're joking, but who said that actually? I want to know.
Someone?
But if you no, but not in a nasty way. I'm just curious if they want to fix it. But if you go to the roadmap, it's full of bugs. So please fix stuff. Like not full, but there's a few bugs. And actually, I have a few more which I'm gonna unveil later. Bugs, by the way, they have this little
Yes.
ladybug icon, and then they have an icon which tells you the severity of the bug. So we have minors, we have important ones, and critical ones, which need to be fixed as fast as possible. And sometimes bugs also have, you see the green dot, which is the good first task. So this is supposed to be a simple one to fix. These ones are a bit more complex, and then they have different severity. So bugs are in here, but if you're in the community, you would report a bug by going to the issues, right?
Yeah.
And then I will create the card. So these issues here are mirrored in the deck on the roadmap. Bugs are gonna be our friends in a couple of months. They're gonna be our best friends.
Friends?
I mean, I'm joking. They're gonna keep us company as the project becomes bigger and bigger. We're gonna have more and more bugs, I think.
Can we add literal bugs in the game, and then as you kill them in the game, it just assigns the cards to Chiro?
Bugs next.
Cheers.
Yeah, Bug Snacks, the sequel.
Yeah. And now I see that we have actually more and more people joining the stream. So maybe it's a good time, I would say, to remind what we are doing here. So if you just joined the stream, we are in episode 4 of the Unity Open Project, which is a collaborative initiative where us, Unity, and you, the community, come together to create a small open source game project. So today in this episode so far, we have shown the gameplay diagram with Shema, and Chiro just showed us the audio system. And now our special guest today, Andy, would like to share some cool stuff with us on shaders, I think. Right, Andy?
Yeah, so I'm going to show 2 add-ons that I've created using ShaderGraph. But first of all, I want to pass it back to Chiro to give an intro on the Toon Shader, or the setup so far. I'm delegating tasks to you, Chiro. You said it's an open project, so I'm openly inviting you to introduce this section.
You're openly putting me on the spot. Okay. So let's take a look at the shader setup that we have in the project. Let's see. So what Andy mentioned very, very briefly is that we have a system to create shaders in the project, which is a bit elaborate, and I'll show you why. If you go into the Toon Shader, and I'm not going to explain how the Toon Shader works. You know, that's in episode 1. If you wanna go back and watch it. But the point that I want to make is that the Toon Shader, for instance, if you open it, it looks like quite simple, right? I mean, it has a lot of inputs here on the left. Then it has one big mega node, I guess. And then it has the unlit master, which is the final node of this shader. Now, the mega node is the important part, and is what we call... No, we don't call it. It's a subgraph. So it's basically a shader in the shader. It's a unit. It's a master unit, if you want, that you can use and reuse in different shaders. So this one is called Toon Shading. If I double click and I get in, I see that this subgraph is made of multiple nodes and subgraphs. We have the calculation of lights and shadows. We have the calculation of the specular, calculation of the outline, the final outline, and then the albedo contribution and stuff. And all of these, they output to the out vector, which then in here becomes this thing here, right? Now, inside the Toon Shading, we also have other subgraphs. For instance, the outline. I can double click and I can dive in into the subgraph, which just produces the outline. And so as you can see, everything is very modular. This becomes this in this subgraph, and then all of these subgraphs become this in the main shader. And this is the main shader. This is the toon that we're using for the characters and the structures and the static geometry. But then what we figured out is that we can add other subgraphs to this structure if we put everything we do in subgraphs. So for instance, we have a shader called Toon Wind, which, as you can see, looks kind of similar. You have the subgraph that I was mentioning before here, you know, like this one. You have the inputs on this side, which are these ones here. And then you have the unlit master node on the right side, which is the exit point if you want. But then you have this thing here, the wind. And basically this thing, which we call, in this project, we call add-ons, is extra functionality that we add to the graph. So now we can have a normal tune and a tune wind, which just adds this functionality to it. And then this is also a subgraph. So everything in here is the calculation of the wind, which has been done actually by one of our community members, Trevize. And so this routine here calculates the wind movement and makes things sway. And now that it's a subgraph, I can add this subgraph as an add-on to anything. So if I make a new shader, for instance, here we have a fire shader, and I don't think it will work out of the box, but I could potentially take this and integrate it inside the fire shader, and now the fire moves with the wind, right? So there's a lot of possibilities. And I put 2 cards on the roadmap a couple of weeks ago, and somebody picked up the challenge, right, Andy?
Yes.
Did you pick up the challenge?
I did. Answer, yes. So having followed the project, I was very interested in contributing in a way that didn't obstruct other people's work, but was able to build on top of it. So I wanted to add tools or add-ons to the project that allowed other people to take them and either lift them into their own projects, like take a subgraph or a tool into their own ones, or that they could use them to be creative in the project. So currently, so far, I've created 2 add-ons for ShaderGraph. One is a detail mask, so you can tint parts of clothing for characters or pretty much anything in the project. And I'll go into that a little bit. And the other one is random position variation. So how do you get a random value for an object and tint it a slightly different color? And this would be less of something for the characters, but more for things where you have many of them in environments, such as trees and bushes and rocks. If you have many of the same rock in a cluster, it's going to look the same. So this shader basically breaks that up and tints them slightly different colors automatically. First of all, I'm going to go through the
demo.
Yes. You're going to play me off like.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Do it at your own pace.
Thank you. So this is going to be a 5-hour presentation now. So here we have our main characters, and if we wanted to add variety to the characters, we can do this in a couple of different ways. So one way would be to make extra textures or extra models for the characters, which for the pig and the hare you might not want to do, but maybe you want to tint the hare's tunic, or maybe the pig's apron and the headband. But for the townsfolk, this might actually be a big mechanic or assistant. So I'm a big fan of Nintendo games, and in Legend of Zelda, they often have goblins and enemies and townsfolk and things like that, which are slightly tinted. So in the Fire world, you have slightly redder skin and redder clothes, whereas in the Aqua world, you have kind of more blue goblins and things. So I wanted to make a shader that could apply this to this project, so people can have a lot of creativity without having to open up a 3D modeling software or open up Photoshop to do this. So I actually developed this for another project at Unity, where we needed clothing for tinting, like a cowboy hat and cowboy clothes and hair and skin and things. And I thought I'd then port it over to this project and implement it for you all to use. So if I go over here, we'll go to our dynamic duo, like so. So if I select the pig, and then Chira's laughing in the background. So if I select the pig, this is using the toon shader that Chira showed you. And we obviously have this tint option where I can select tint and I can apply tint. This looks pretty funky. However, it's not really what we want. Maybe we don't want the whole pig to be blue or the whole pig to be red. Maybe we want like the apron to be red, or maybe we want the headband to be red, or things like that. And the same would apply to pretty much any other object using this shader. So I wanted to create an add-on that did this automatically. So in actually assessing the toon shader, as Chiro pointed out very nicely, we have this toon shading block, and I didn't want to disturb this block at all. I wanted to pipe data into it, so other people, much smarter than I, can work on sort of the toon outline and the shadows and the lighting, and I can just sort of piggyback off of it and just provide the data to them. I didn't want to disrupt this shader here. When working with other people, I don't like to step on their toes. I hate merge conflicts like everyone, so I wanted to just develop along the side of them. And I realized that here we have this tint coming in. So we can pass in data through this tint value. Because as a recap, we don't want to tint the whole pig. We want to tint certain parts of the pig. This is where a detail mask comes into play. So I've created this detail mask manually in Photoshop, and I'm sure some people in the chat are going to recommend tools that does this automatically, and I wish I met them a year ago.
Did it take you a year to make these masks?
No. I started doing detail masks and stuff a year ago. And what the detail mask does is it acts similarly to a PBR mask, where there's data stored in each color channel. So like a typical PBR mask would have in the red channel would be metallic, how metallic an object is, or the certain parts. The green channel would have how smooth the object is, and maybe there's emission in one of the channels and things like that. So it uses a similar sort of logic. So for the pig's detail mask, in the red channel is colored in the pixels for his apron. So as you can see here, we've got where his neck is in this UV, and then we've got the straps over the shoulders. The green channel is his shirt, which is around the edges of the apron. The blue channel, it doesn't look like much, but if I switch over to the pig's albedo, it's actually his headband, because maybe we want to customize his headband color, because that could be pretty cool. And the alpha channel, because obviously a texture can have 4 channels, is actually all the other space, the parts we don't want to tint. So this is such as the skin, the little yellow dots on his apron, his trousers, his shoes, areas like that, because we want to have some consistent elements to it. So that's the detail mask. I've actually supplied the PSD as well. So if you use Photoshop, you can actually open up the PSD file and see how I put it together. But it's just a lot of time of coloring things in whilst watching things on my second screen. So now that we got this detail mask, we can then use it in Unity, in Shader Graph. So if I go over to my Toon Detail Mask Tint shader, you'll see here we still have the same toon shading setup and color and shadow and all these nice things. But you'll notice that tint has been intercepted, and it's actually now using this detail mask add-on instead. So this shader is still going to get all the benefits that take place with toon shading, such as improved sort of outlines or improved lighting and things like that. But I get to sort of pipe in this detail mask tint. So the detail mask tint takes in, subgraph takes in 4 different properties. One is the actual texture, and then color properties for red, green, and blue tints. So what you want to tint the apron, what you want to tint the shirt. And if I go into the detail mask tint subgraph, we'll be able to see this in play. So it all starts here with the detail mask tint texture. It gets sampled, as you can see here, and then it gets split out. So we have access to the red channel, the green channel, the blue channel, and also the alpha channel at the bottom. And you notice that as it gets split out, it has this singular color. So it's almost like these are 1s where the white area is, and black is a 0. And then I multiply it by those tints. So we don't want a white apron. Maybe we do. I mean, actually in a normal kitchen, that makes more sense. But this is a game, not a Gordon Ramsay's Chop Chop game. So maybe we want to take this apron and tint it this kind of greenish hue. I quite like this harsh red, green, blue coloring, but this might be a bit too blinding. This would be like a Willy Wonka sponsored game. But
sorry to interrupt you, Andy. I think it's good to point out this, and you're doing it already, but to reinforce the fact that you have a 4-channel texture, right? But then you treat them as masks, so the values are both colors, but also black to white, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So even though they're colors, that just separates them into these channels. The actual result that Shader Graph or any shader takes care of is that these are white and black areas. But just like PBR shading, you can also have gray areas for surfaces that aren't entirely metallic or reflective, but aren't entirely dull, like Play-Doh or wood. You have surfaces in the middle like rust or coins. So basically you take each of these channels and multiply them by those tints. So we've got this kind of green color for the apron, blue color for the shirt, and this sort of, I guess, muddy yellow color for the headband. And then I combine them all using a custom function. This is just a bunch of adds. It's just adding all of these textures together. So for example, if I took this sort of red channel here and I added it to this blue channel, notice it sort of gets rebuilt. It's adding the color pixels together. And then the end result of that then gets fed through this blend node. So the blend node basically takes our end result and it applies a hard light mix to it. As this is a toon game, this hard light mix is a bit better because we want sort of harsher, cartoony colors. Obviously, you can change this. So if I'm doing a more like PBR game, I'll probably multiply it. But hard light is, I played through all of these. I won't do that now, but this was the most fitting. And then opacity is basically defining which areas are going to be shaded and which areas are not by this blend, where the alpha comes in, because the alpha is basically taking in any area not to be tinted, such as the skin, and that's being fed in through opacity. And then the end result gets fed out through the end of the subgraph. So it's actually, if you zoom out, the really cool thing about shader graph is you get these previews of the steps from left to right. So you can actually see like how it all progresses all the way through to the end. So if I then jump back into the scene view and select the pig, I can switch over to that toon shader, which is Toon Detail Mask Tint. And here I now have color channels for red, green, and blue. And I can actually tint each of these. So Chiro, give me a nice color for the apron.
White. No, I'm joking.
Well, white would just be orange because it's being multiplied on top of the base albedo. But
so a very light blue. No. Yeah. Or green. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Chema, give me one for the shirt.
Red.
Of course. No one said pink yet. I see pink shaders in my nightmares. So what about Amel? What would you choose for the headband?
Well, pink. So we see it in your nightmares.
That looks cute. See this in my dreams. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, like, we're almost at Super Mario, so I might as well. I guess it's almost like that. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Actually, I'll go back because I open sourced the shader properties.
Carol just messaged in the chat hashtag magenta nightmare.
I resigned.
Making it concrete.
It's a good hashtag.
So even though we have this detail mask for the pig, obviously the shader works with any detail mask. So I've already set one up for the bunny. So if I now switch over to the bunny detail mask, I can obviously make him Luigi. Oh wait, hang on, I'm doing the other round. Yep, that one. So you see how quick it is to actually, sort of modify and customize these characters. And as I mentioned earlier, so we've got some townsfolk here. So this is that same. So I've set up the detail masks for both the male and female townsfolk. So you could have like different gangs or people walking around. You could have some subtle random variety and things like that to the objects. But really this is just entry level. You can apply this to vegetation, rocks, anything where you have different types of details, different parts. Can make use of this sort of add-on. Yeah.
Super useful. Yeah, I mean, it's, this project seems like a, I don't know, it's a big project, but making characters that are unique, making like enough characters to populate like an entire town is going to be tough. So it's good to be able to variate like the clothes, the coloring. Actually, Andy, you mentioned something this morning when we were talking about making masks that are not just like flat areas, but like painted, right? Do you remember?
Oh, yes. So, you put me on the spot now.
No, don't make one. Don't make one, but just to mention.
No, I'll make one.
Make one.
Okay, I'll make one now. So these are obviously just flat colors, right? So this is just going to tint a singular color. However, we get extra, we can control anything that happens inside this area. So maybe we want whatever's in the first channel to be a striped shirt. So I'll just pull up the checkerboard node. Let's tile it.
And he's
So
gonna
we've got
and he's gonna do some of his shader magic now, live.
I literally spent all day doing this stuff. So here I've got this this checkers, and then I can rotate it slightly. This is pretty fun. So I can rotate the UV.
Yes.
And then I'm now going to multiply this with that green channel. So you notice that we're applying those stripes to the UV here. And let's pass this out. Notice it's coming all the way through. I love it when it does that, when it just shows you exactly what you can see. If I now jump back to the scene view, wait for the shit. So we now got these like stripes on all of our, oh, they look like Rambo or something like that. And of course you could do more fun stuff. So, I mean, I really shouldn't be doing this. But kind of the point I'm saying is, I'm trying to make here is that when you have those detail masks, you can have a lot of fun. You can actually do some really cool stuff. So I'm now offsetting the scroll. So if I now switch back, we've now got disco.
Wow.
This is like YMCA.
I love this.
I mean, this is not like, this could be a cool power up. Obviously, I'm just, freewheeling,
Messing
here.
around, yeah.
Yeah, I'm messing around here, but you could do all sorts of cool stuff. Like, so this is applying that checkerboard to not the whole character, but to certain parts that we've detail masked. So this is, I'm sure the people in the community are going to come up with a million more ideas than this, than YMCA camouflage ogres. But yeah, let me just fix that. But I'll leave that node set up in there. Yeah, there we go. It's a little bit more normal. Well, as normal as several townsfolk can be, but I'm picking a bone.
Nice.
I'll be honest. The kind of this idea of reusing shaders and reusing assets sort of came from a talk I saw from GDC on Firewatch, where they have this massive forest in the game, and they made it with something like, I should have checked the number. I think it's like 10 different types of tree or 12 different types of tree makes this whole forest, because they basically just randomized it and used the same thing over and over again, because they're a small team and they're not going to be able to make 1,000 trees. That would take forever to do. So yeah, just reuse your tools and make systems that allow you to kind of be flexible with what content you have.
Yeah.
So already these look like
procedural
completely
almost,
different
right?
characters.
Procedure, I guess.
Yeah,
maybe it's not
I'd
the right
say,
word.
I guess, controlled procedural. I don't know if that's an oxymoron, but I'm sure No Man's Sky that's mentioned somewhere. But yeah. Controlled procedural.
I think procedural is
yeah.
controlled, right? It's not random by definition.
I mean, you give it values and then you hope that it's what you think it will be.
So you have one more shader for us, right?
Yes. So that's the detail mask tint. And I'm going to move on to a slightly different one, but it's kind of similar in tone of using the content you have and then adapting it to make the most of it or get a lot more use out of it. So I'm going to hide these people and I'm going to show this tree. So one thing I noticed looking at the project is that there's a lot of elements like trees and rocks and things which are probably going to be duplicated and placed around. And these look really cool, but you're going to, and even with wind, I really like this wind sort of add-on effect. It's really, really nice. Even with sort of rotating objects and new positions and scales, you're going to get a lot of monotony. I spend too long playing games like with forests and just trying to count how many variations of tree there are. And funny enough, there's like 5 or 6 usually in games. This is what I spend my spare time doing. So what we want to do is we want to basically have variety, and you can do this in a couple of ways. And one way is with shaders with color. So it's similar to the detail mask trick. Now, if I took this tree and duplicated it like 2 or 3 times, obviously this tree will look the same in all angles. I mean, lighting might be different and positions obviously different. But we want to be able to assign sort of slightly different tints and tones. So if you look at maybe not now if it's dark, but it's actually winter, so trees are losing their leaves. But usually if you look at a photo of a forest, trees have slight variations and slightly different hues. And we want to do this automatically. We don't want to go to individual trees if there's 1,000 and say, this one's slightly darker green, this one's slightly red. We want the computers and shaders to do all this stuff for us. They're pretty clever and they like doing all this.
It will also result more natural, right? Like we will never be able to infuse the same randomized variation if we were to make like 5 prefabs with different textures and then place them by
it
hand.
would, it feels so designed, right? And
Yeah,
usually
yeah.
people play games to, it's that thing that breaks immersion. Like if I play a game with pedestrians walking around and I see the same two pedestrians like walking down the street together, they're probably not twins. It's just not a lot of variety. I mean, even a slight tint of like a jacket color would bring out, wouldn't make you notice it. But yeah. So it's a blessing and a curse of being able to duplicate objects, but then you have to randomize them a little bit. So
I'm gonna note that sentence now. It's a blessing and a curse to be able to duplicate objects. That's Andy 2020.
Well, I mean, there's many quotes people have said in 2020 that are much more horrific and impactful than that. But we'll move on. So let's get the shader to do this all for us. So one difficult thing is if we then just duplicate a load of materials and assign them, you're going to get into that manual process. We want to be able to generate a random number per object using a material. We want one material for all the trees, but there's slight different variations. There's lots of ways to get a random number, but one which I learned from the Unity Korea team is to use position. So technically every object listed at the same place, and then that's kind of pointless, will have a slightly different position. So this tree here is 0.07 in X, 0 in Y, and 14.76 in Z. Or Z. I'll localize it. Whereas this tree would be negative 8, 0, 13, and then this tree is going to be, they're all slightly different numbers and values. We can actually use this data in Shader Graph. There's an object node that gathers this data for you. Now, if we just fed in object positions into the shader and use them, it kind of looks like this. So this is just a debug plane I made quickly. So trees that would be in sort of this area are going to be tinted green. This one can be tinted black or 0. This one can be tinted red and tinted yellow. And if we're making a game with square-based biomes, this would do, but it doesn't really work for a nice forest where every tree or rock or something has slight variations. So that doesn't really work. And this is where Fract comes in. So if I enable this plane, this is taking that object position value and it's using the Fract node. And what Fract node does, and I have a forum post which goes into a bit more detail about this, is it takes these values. So if I turn on this other object position, I'm sorry if I blinded you with all these fluorescent colors. It basically takes this the value and it clamps it between 0 and 1. So if I place this tree here, it's going to be a value of 5.46, 0, 15.49. And what Fract does is it basically kind of fracts and recurs it. So it won't be 5.46. The result will be clamped between 0 and 1. So it'll probably be 0.46. And this one will probably be like 0.49. So it basically takes the value and almost like loops it around no matter where it's positioned. And this is great because then we can just place trees, 3,000 units away, 4 units away, and it would automatically have its own kind of like random value, pseudo random value. So if I turn back on that plane, this is what Fract would then do to the position. So notice that if I take this big plane and I move it around, no matter where I move it, it's basically having that same Fract data because this is all generated in position space. So, and if I go zoom in, you'll notice that it's basically just lots of little quads with all these little data for the positions here. And we can get these trees to then use that data. So if I now go to one of the trees and I go to its material and I'll switch, or actually I'll show you how the shader graph works. So again, I wanted to build off of the add-ons. I wanted to use the add-on sort of setup and build off of this shader. So I didn't want to touch this toon shader and modify it. I wanted to piggyback off all the amazing work everyone else is doing. And then I manipulated the tint being passed into it using this random position tint subshader. This subshader is actually pretty simple. You get your object position, which is that XYZ value. I then split it and combine it. So we don't want the Y position because mostly we just want it in the X and Z axis. So I basically split and combine it just to use its position X and Z. We can add Y if we want to later on. I then apply the fraction or the fract node. And of course, you can view the documentation if you want a more mechanical explanation of it. I then multiply this value for variation intensity, because we want to set how intense this fract tinting is. Do we want it to be like 0.1, so it's a little bit, or do we want it to be, Willy Wonka's Candyland and be, very, very vibrant? And then we tint it by a color, because maybe we want all the trees in a certain area to be sort of slightly red, but slight variations of red. And then I output that tint. So it's actually pretty simple. It's only a handful of nodes, and then you get a pretty cool effect. So if I select this tree and I switch it from the toon wind over to this random position tint. So these 3 trees are all using that random position tint now, I think. Yep. Let's set a tint value. So notice that the tint value is still applying the same logic. So they're all being tinted by this value. I can tint them all slightly orange and all colors of the spectrum. But when I increase this tint variety, notice that they are all going to have slightly different shades. So if I place...
Yeah, it's very evident when you move them.
Yeah, so notice it's moving around, that position is getting fed into that shader graph. Like, I don't have to have any code to say get position and play it here. That's my.
I guess one thing
myself.
One thing that we should add to the shader, Andy, is a multiplier to decide like the size of this cell.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool.
So now you have, with this trick at the surface level, look, they all have.
Show the
I
other.
could have gone in and
the other scene.
Yeah, so I will in a second, Jerry. I will. Trust me, I have demo stuff set up. You said for me to set everything up and not wing it, so I will do that now. So taking that shader, sort of applied it to the ferns as well. So we got some ferns here, and then we can make more ferns. And notice they're all slightly different variants. They're all slightly different colors. That's the same fern, but just different tints. And I didn't have to say, oh, this one's this color, this one's this color. Also the bushes, so you're not limited to just trees. We could apply it to the rocks, we could apply it to kind of anything. This is just duplicate, blessing and curse of duplicating things. There we go. We've now got a miniature forest where everything's a slightly different tint. And so as Chiro was saying, if I now switch over to the testing ground environment, which is this one here, so this is the one where you go into play mode and you run around. Notice that all the trees, they're all been very beautifully placed. I don't know who placed these. I'm guessing Amel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What?
I don't know who set up these trees in this scene. I'm just going to piggyback off of their hard work. They're all...
It was Polybrush, to be fair.
And scales.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Polybrush. So if I take one of these trees and they're all using the same material, and then I switch it over to this toon vegetation shader graph, which I've made, and apply it, and then I can now apply a slight variation to it. Notice that they're all instantly, I don't have to go in and say, you have all these different values. It's just getting all their positions and just applying it automatically. And they're also swaying with the wind. So they've got very subtle wind swaying because I'm using the wind add-on as well. So I'm combining the wind add-on with the random position tint add-on, and then making this toon vegetation. We've now got this forest. Oh, wait for the shader to reload. Now got this forest of slight different variations, which is pretty cool. Like, I didn't have to do anything except assign a shader, and it just works automatically.
Super cool.
Now let's go into play mode and actually see what this looks like. Wait for play mode. So I don't know why the game view is miniature.
You're on low resolution. What's it?
It's okay. We can probably see. Aha. So now we've got a slight problem. Is in scene view, all the trees were slightly different colors, right? But in game view, they all seem to be the same color. So does anyone know why this happened? Why are my trees not?
Quiz time.
Because
we saw this issue as we were like reviewing this submission, let's say, and now I'm curious, like, do you immediately spot why this issue is happening? I'm gonna go back to the editor, and actually, Andy, you said in game view, but actually, if you go to the scene view, the issue is also there. The issue is happening in play mode.
Outside of play mode. So actually, if I leave play mode, beautiful forest and all the values. Oh my god, you can do some.
So I'm curious if somebody from the chat can. I'm gonna read the chat now. Can spot why the trees or the shader that Andy made doesn't work immediately in play mode.
Yeah, we have some answers, and some of them are correct, actually.
Let's see if you're, let's see, you graduate. Bamboozled.
So has someone got the correct answer?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. Yes.
They did. Okay. So to summarize, these trees were using static batching. Static batching is really cool. Again, a blessing and a curse in this situation, because it basically takes similar objects or similar meshes and it combines them into one unified mesh. And this is a good thing, because then it takes the material and the models and it merges them all together. So instead of drawing, say, like 100 trees on the screen, you draw sort of one big mesh blob of trees. So if I select one of these trees, what you'll notice, there's my dreaded nightmare pink. Maybe seeing that tonight. All these trees have been combined into that similar mesh because they're all using the same material. They all have the same, mesh property. So they're being combined. So this is really good because it's great for performance. But it's bad because the shader relies on the object position. If all these are one object, they're all using the same object position technically, right? Which is probably going to be this. I'm going to take a guess.
At the center of the scene, yeah.
Yeah. So we now run into this problem. Like, do we turn and this happens in pretty much every project, at least I've worked on, I've seen other people work on, is you come into this crossroads of do we go down this route and disable this thing, or do we keep pursuing down our current thing? And I guess this is a fun sort of crossroads we can come to. Like, do we disable static batching and then that way we have less performance, but we get this really nice visual effect? Or do we remove the visual effect and we just scrap it or use it for something else? Or do we come up with a tool or a way that we can kind of work with both of these with this setup, right?
Yeah. So as you say, like the quick and easy solution would be just to disable static batching. You could potentially or disable disable it for that prefab, right? And then now the trees.
Yes. So I've done that now. I've turned off static batching, and then I've applied it to the prefab. I'll go on top of Aya's Rock, and now we have Nightmare Land trees. We can say, what's that shadowy place over there, Chiro?
Don't make that joke.
That's magenta. Yeah, someone from Disney's watching. So we obviously get the shader sort of coming through in this very, very violently colored tone. Obviously, I can tone it down. We can do that runtime as well. But they're no longer combined, so the performance is going to be a bit less. So we have these trade-offs. One solution that I thought about adding, I haven't added it yet, I won't do it on the spot either, is to take the object positions of the trees and bake them into the vertex data. So meshes can contain vertex colors. So you lay out your forest, and then you have a little tool that says tool bake object positions. It then bakes the position of each tree to its own vertex colors, because you can store data there. And then when you go into play mode, it then uses vertex colors for shading the trees. So they'll still be statically batched, but rather than using the object position, they're actually using their local vertex colors, or they're using their positional vertex colors. Off the top of my head, this would work. Maybe combining the meshes loses the vertex colors. We'll have to try, but that's part of development, right? You don't sit down, make a thing, and then it's the end result, right? You do a draft and you iterate and you learn and you improve it. So,
indeed, we have actually Harry Alisavakis in the chat. He's a great shader expert, and and he's suggesting how about some world space mapped noise to provide the variation instead. And I think it's a good idea. The only thing I think this would produce is that you would see variation within the same mesh, because the noise doesn't know that when you sample the noise, it's done per fragment. So within the same mesh, you will see the result of the noise happening. What you were trying to do here was to tint an entire object with one color, right, with the same color.
Yeah, so I was thinking use a world space noise first. There's probably a way you could take the object position, but then the object position gets lost. So you could use world space noise. I sort of avoided it at first because then you would get clusters of color. So you'd get like this area trees is like light, this area trees is dark and stuff. Whereas again, going back to Legend of Zelda, when you go into like the woods area, they're all slightly dark, but they're all slightly dark tinted a shade. Whereas world space noise, you'd get patches. I think you could probably have world space noise generated separately, and then that data gets fed into each mesh. But again, it's like, this is all off the top of my head. I'd have to experiment and try. And
I think
you could use noise to have a less random approach and more patches of color. That could be an interesting.
It's cool because the chat is actually producing a lot of interesting variations on the theme and potential solutions.
Well, this is why. So actually, on the art assets branch of the repository, the subgraph is there. So if you want to take it and then you want to modify it, extend it, improve it, apply it. This is why we did this project. This is why I sort of suggested this tool or this system for people to build off of. So yeah, by all means, take it, improve it. I'm sure someone's going to come back with, Red Dead Redemption style shading tomorrow.
So if you want to get the project, you go to the repo, right? As Andy said, like on art assets, there's usually like the latest developments in art. And then you go to the forums, and we have a thread called, Andy, help me. It was the one that you created. Shader add-ons. There we go.
If you switch to my screen, I've got it. Oh, okay. Or you can on it. So I went into a little bit more information. Basically everything I said, but with prettier pictures and diagrams and some Korean as well. So if the Korean team is watching us, thank you for the thing, and we love you. Oh, I already thanked them, and I thanked my partner for helping me translate parts of it because I don't know Korean at all.
Actually, I just want to send them like a Korean heart.
So that's my current contributions. It's not much, but I thought I'd sort of work on things people can work off of. Even if you're not familiar with making games, people can still take the tinting and change the colors of things. Pretty much everyone knows to use color picker.
That's cool.
Go wild. And I'm sure other people are going to make some really cool add-ons and combinations.
Definitely jump on the forums, and try to provide your own solution to that issue that we've shown. We just we thought it would be interesting. It would have been interesting to show the issue on the live stream, because that's what game development is. It's a series of roadblocks, and then you try to figure out like ways to overcome them. So please come to the forums and bring your opinion and show us like potential solutions, because there's many. There's not just one. I also wanted to say, Andy and to the others actually, in relationship to shaders, we have another type of videos that we make. So right now you're watching the live stream. Just as a recap, you're watching the journey, right, which is the live stream about open projects, which is this project that we're making, open source. You'll find it on GitHub, which is this repository here. You can download it, you can use it. You can contribute to it. And so you're watching the live stream, but then we made some other videos, and we just made one of them, and they're called devlogs. The devlogs are videos that are a bit more focused, if you want. So I'm just showing you one of them. This one is exactly focused on the Toon shader, and as you can see, the length is 10 minutes. So this is trying to show you what we've done on the Toon shader in 10 minutes, and it explains like a little bit of the process, of the thinking behind it, So it's like a very condensed way of seeing the project. And again, this is devlog 1, but we will make more of them. And the next one, spoiler, is going to be about scriptable objects. The cool thing with the devlogs, though, is that if you go to the repo and you go to the branches, you will notice that you have main, you have art assets, localization, state machine, whiteboxing. These branches are part of the development. So they are the ones that we're using to make the game. So if you go to the main page of the repo, you will notice like the README that looks like this, that had the big jumping. And this main branch is on 19.4 because for this version of for this game, we're using 19.4 LTS to ensure ourselves the maximum stability as we make the game. But if you go to the repo and you switch to the branch that's called devlog 1 toon shading, which is the one that comes with the first video, then you're going to be able to download a stripped down version of the project where we only focus on, for example, in this case, the toon shading. And the stripped down version is upgraded to 2020.2. In this case, the beta, but it's going to be upgraded to like future versions. So basically you have like two kind of like roads, right? Like you have the main path, which is on 19.4, which is where we develop the game. And it's the one where you can see like all of the features working together in an ensemble, right? And then it's potentially the most complicated one. And then you have the other branch, which again is called, in this case, devlog 1 toon shading, where you have like a stripped down version of the project, which is again ported to 2020.2 latest version. So you can kind of like take it and just like drop it in your game project. And also because it's stripped down, it's a bit easier to understand. So we're trying to do this, and we're going to do this for the following devlogs as well. The next one is going to come out in like 3 weeks from now or something. But, look out on the YouTube channel and you'll see them.
Cool. I did get a... Hello?
You'd get a...
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Everyone went very quiet. So I did get a question about the shader stuff. Shall I do a question now or later?
Sure. No, it's a perfect moment.
So one question I got was, what happens if you wanted to add more than 3 different tint targets? Would you add more detail masks? So again, this is always a trade-off. So another project I'm working on at Unity, which is going to come out soon, uses 4 channels, so RGBA. R is like hats, G is like clothing, B is skin, and A is hair for a character, because we want to tint like the whole thing. So you can use that alpha channel if you don't want any masked areas. The trouble with then going more than that is the more texture samples you add, the more expensive the shader is, because every texture sample is going to take a bit of a hit, especially on mobile. So what sometimes people do is they split some of the channels into smaller chunks. So like, let's say in the red channel, you don't just use 0 to like black is not masked, white is masked. You could have like the range of 0 to 0.2, which is like sort of slightly, I guess, dark gray, would be one sort of tinted area. So you can actually stack these up. The trouble is then in the shader, you're going to have to like work out these ranges. So lots of people also combine ramps, I guess, like ramp textures.
And also editing these textures, right? Like it's going to take a lot of effort. Like you need a custom tool to be able to paint these textures.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with Substance, but I know it's got some pretty cool channel-based painting and stuff like this. But I'm not sure if that's in it. But yeah, the more textures you have, the more expensive it will be. But then if you're making a game for desktop, you can more. If you're making a game for desktop and you're not using, say, an emission map or full PBR map, like this is a toon shader game, right? We're not going to have full PBR setup, so we could probably get away with another detail mask, I think.
Yeah, but that's a good point.
So again, so there's pros and cons. You can bake data into the vertex channels. So there's lots of different branches, right? And depending where you want to go on mobile, the fewer texture samples, the better. So probably a ramp texture might be better.
Because textures
all
are
sorts of-
quite expensive to read, actually. And if you just add one, even if it's a small texture, just the fact that you're reading a new file, then it creates like a relatively big overhead for even as I said, even if the file is small.
I've seen some pretty cool setups which had like one texture, and then they had details packed in like a grid, like if you do 5x5, right? So you have 25 options, and then you kind of read the UV for different areas. So like for a character's face changing or different types of clothing. So I've seen people pack a lot of data in. And then you just read that one texture, right? And then you just choose the UV offset. Kind of like a looking glass, right? You look at different.
It makes
parts
sense, and then you pay only for one reading, right?
Yeah, and then you just have slightly different UV offset. I've seen some people do stuff like this, which is pretty cool.
Makes
So
sense. Again,
we
I
look into
think
it.
the key with that kind of stuff is then you need a tool to help you make that texture, because you can't just like open. I mean, you could put it together in Photoshop, but that's when making tools makes a lot of sense and really speeds up the workflow.
Especially if you make it in a generic manner, so you can use it for
Multiple projects.
not just this, but multiple projects, multiple uses. You can use it not just for vegetation, but for like rocks, for all the characters.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of reusing stuff, so I don't have to reinvent the wheel many times.
Plus one.
All right, cool.
Yes.
I think these two
So-
were like our main demos, I guess. Amel?
Yes. Yeah, I was gonna say that. So the last time, as we said, we revealed the title, Chop Chop, and you guys contributed on that. And we thought this time we also want to open another vote for the next episode. And maybe Chiri want to tell us more about this. I guess it's related to the
True.
topic.
I
Right?
was almost forgetting. Yeah, for sure. For sure. So the idea is that basically we have a bunch of topics that we want to cover with these live streams. We have some kind of idea about them, and obviously they need to be planned in time. But for the next one, we wanted to open up the question to you. We have a topic that we want to cover, but then we wanted to say, do you want to see something more, and which one? And the idea is that we provide two options. So in this case, it's these two options here. And if you want, you can go to this form and vote, and then we'll pick up the one that is most requested. So we're going to cover one topic from the game, and then another topic, which is one of these two, using the game. So the options that we are giving are advanced workflow with prefabs, so all that we're doing with prefabs in this project and more, or more advanced tips on using Git, GitHub, and collaborating with Git, so solving conflicts, scene merges, how to break down collaboration, how to break down the project for collaboration. So these are the two topics that we would want to propose, and you're free to go and vote on them. Shema, you had the link, right? I think,
Oh yeah,
Yes.
I can share it here. I can share it in the chat, and you can start voting now. I think we will close the votes in 1 week.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the idea is that we open the vote now, and then you have 1 week to vote. So if you're seeing the link that Shema is gonna share in the chat, is gonna bring you to the form. But then we also have a post on the forums. So after this live stream, you're gonna find the link on the forum if you missed it for some reason. But I'm gonna vote so I can see the results. No, I'm not gonna vote. I'm gonna
Especially that
refresh.
you are
Do I have
sharing my
access?
screen. The screen. Yeah.
Can I
Yeah,
see the
so-
responses? Yes. So we had 0 responses for now. I mean, of course.
Yeah.
So let's see if somebody wants to vote live, and then we'll refresh this page and see what they chose. Oh,
Yeah, so just
0.
saying, Carol just updated. She put the link in the chat, so you can find it now. Also, if you go there, we have provided a link to go back to the stream because we are still here.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, we have a response, and it was
Okay.
I'll be honest, it was me that voted.
Anyway, the poll is there. You have the link in the description, and you know, you have a week to vote. So we thought it would be fun if you voted right now, but don't lose the stream, especially if you're on mobile. That will kick you out of the YouTube app. So up to you. But let us know.
A lot of people in the chat are saying that they need permission, so we should probably update.
Okay, that's a good point.
Okay, yeah.
Shema, can you do that? Sorry.
Yeah, I will take care of it.
Making it public.
Thanks for see. It's not just open source project; it's also open source polling, open source support.
Yeah.
Yes.
Classic permission fail.
We prepared everything else except.
Guys, security is a thing in 2020. You know, we need to be
it's good.
careful.
It's good that
Careful. It was a test, honestly.
It was a test, to make sure
just
you guys opened the link.
people were awake still.
just to recap what the two options are, while we, anyone who's like clicking on the form again. So advanced workflows with prefabs, including like nesting variants, which we're going to use a lot. And I'm going to show you like the power of variants. I'm going to show you the substitution of a prefab root and kind of like the chain of inheritance. And if these things sound weird, vote for that. And on the other hand, we have tips about GitHub and collaboration. So again, like using Git, using GitHub, merging conflicts, and how to face conflicts in scenes and in code.
I think we can open the form now and see the responses live.
Yeah. Fine.
There's 24, 26. Okay, so they're pouring in.
Yeah.
30. Interesting. So should I show the responses? I mean, there's plenty, so I don't think it's going to influence anyone's voting. 53, they're really like pouring in. 57.
Yeah.
So shall I reveal? 62? Yeah. Wow.
Yes.
That's a lot. Actually, let's do it in a second. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, so
that's a lot of people like voting live. It's super nice. I hope they don't leave the stream. Now we have 80. So somebody's watching. Interesting. Hello, if you're watching. And if you're wondering what we're doing here, because this is always a question. I guess people come in and out of the stream, right?
Yeah.
So this is a bi-weekly stream. It's called Open Projects The Journey. And it's basically a recap of what we're doing on this project, which is called, on this initiative, I guess, which is called Open Projects, which consists in us from Unity making an open source game together with the community. So if you want to check out the project is on GitHub. It's available to download and explore. You'll find the link in the description of the video. And then we have other sections like the forums. We have a dedicated section on the forums where we discuss things. And then we have a roadmap for the project, which shows you where we're going, what are the next tasks. And also a kind of like a wiki of the game, which shows you the design behind it and where we want to go in some way.
Mm-hmm.
So we have 115.
Wow.
More
than 100, yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
People said they can vote multiple times, so we're going to have to recount the ballots.
That's fine.
Close voting.
So shall we see which one is winning? And then again, there's going to be a week to vote, but let's see which one at 120 votes. Oof. Advanced workflow with prefabs is winning big. That's interesting, and maybe a bit surprising.
That's a good job because Chiro is Mr. Prefab, though, right? Mr. Nested.
Actually, yeah, you can see it update in real time, although the page moves. Cool. So nested prefab workflow is winning big. Interesting.
Yeah,
it's interesting that people still love prefabs, and I think watch our our next episode, because you're gonna be surprised. You're gonna learn something, even if you think you know prefabs inside out. Come see some stuff in 2 weeks. Cool. Yeah. 141 responses. I didn't think like people would vote like right now. That's super cool.
let's remind everyone that we will close the polls after 1 week, and try not to vote twice.
It doesn't matter. I mean, it's okay. It's okay. It means that they really want to hear about that
Yeah,
topic.
I was gonna say it. Like, if you are willing to vote multiple times, then you really want it.
Then you deserve
And
it.
That's okay. You deserve it.
You deserve us to present on what. But you know, like at 100 replies and more, it's hard to skew the vote. I mean, you will need to put some effort into it. Anyway, it's not a big deal. It's not an election, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the next thing I wanted to go to, and we're really like closing, like almost there. I wanted to show some community contributions that we had.
Yeah.
And so to do that, I want to kind of like go through very quickly. We have some in the project, but I want to show you some that are basically coming. So we have a request, we have a task on the roadmap, which is about making accessories for these characters, for the townsfolk. Because as we said with Andy, right, they all look the same. So basically, we want to make sure that they don't look the same and that they're a bit more like unique, each one of them. So we want accessories that we can attach to the characters to customize them. And so to do that, we open the task and people are starting to make things. So we have like a sombrero from user Smurio. She also made a very interesting like hairstyle, I guess.
I like the hair, actually.
It's super cool, actually. And I didn't think of hair, but it's super nice. And then she recycled some geometry to make, this is kind of like a, how do you call this? I don't remember what's the name of this type of hat. Somebody's making a mask. And then as I was saying, Smurio recycled the geometry from that hairstyle to make like a hair coming out of the ears. I really don't know what this is, but it's funny. So I approve it. Yeah, something is weird, I approve it. But yeah, this is like the contributions that are coming out of that thread. And what I want to show here is that sometimes, not this one in particular, but like some contributions are can be simple. And so you can provide anything, not anything, but something, even if you're not a super, high poly modeler, I guess. Because the game style means that we can use these relatively low poly models, and actually we need low poly models. In another thread, people are working on like some environment art. There's this user Luxkill who's making flowers and trees and plants. So you can see he's making some new types of trees. He's making this house, 2-story house, which is super nice. And it's actually, this is not the final version. I have it in the project, but I need to pull it again. So you can see the amount.
So nice.
Yeah, you can see like the range of things that are being contributed by the community. There's like other types of trees. You can see them here, smaller. And I'm gonna put them in the project soon. I just provided some. I think, I just provided him with some feedback on the PR. So some things are like very high poly, scaling factors, and then the pivot, which is like pointing down. But these kind of like small fixes, and I hope he's gonna make a new commit and fix these things, and then we're gonna pull them in the project. But I'm super excited about this contribution because it's gonna improve the look of the environment a lot. I really love these little 2 ferns that he made. Yeah, it's so cool.
It's very cool.
Yeah. We have Jamie Newton, who I think is on the stream right now, and he's making some new flowers for the game. There's no image in the PR, so I'm not gonna be able to show it right now. I should have pulled them, but he included something on Twitter.
There was an image through Twitter. Yeah, I was just going to say.
Yeah.
These look awesome.
Yeah.
So they're super cool as well, and again, they're gonna be enriching like the flora of the game. So I'm gonna probably pull them in the project soon enough.
It would be pretty cool to combine the like detail mask with so you could have different types of flowers for the top, and so
definitely
you could have clusters of flowers that are all slightly different, and it's
definitely
super nice.
We're probably gonna do it, but we need like a mask for the for tinting, like just how do you call these things? I don't know. Yeah.
Jamie Newton said there are 6 on the way, I think.
Wow.
So that's nice.
Thank you so much. That's super cool. I'm looking forward to see them in the game. And then we have some incredible stuff because we outsourced. I mean, we put them on the roadmap. If you saw it here, 3D and shading, we had some tasks about some critters. And basically the idea is like we made one, but then we put 2 for the community to make. And some people, replied big time. So here I have this PR from user Trevize, who's making the plant critter, which looks like this. But actually, that's the first version. So he always fills the PR with interesting images and kind of like the process that he goes through. And then he started animating it. And I want to show you here in the thread.
That is super awesome. I love seeing all the progress and the behind the scenes.
He posted this video about the...
this is so good.
The animator like connected. And then you see he changes the parameters on the animator to trigger the different animation states. So he shows the attack, and then there's the B hit. So this is all like stuff that he made, but he's collaborating with another user another person to on the animation actually. So you should, wrong video. So you should check out the thread to see these contributions, which are super interesting. And then also they're working on another critter, which is the slime critter. So this was the concept art. This was the first version. He made a custom shader for it. And then he's working, and he basically is making it like... this GIF is never gonna play. Oh no, it's playing. He's basically creating like not only like a shader that looks like jelly, but also that moves in time. So it looks like it has some liquid inside. This is me like talking about stuff. So yeah, check out this thread as well. It's on the forums. Sorry, this is the PR, but there's also a thread on the forums, which very nice of you. He linked in the PR, so you can just like click and see the whole history. And really, like I think the whole history of the progress can teach you a lot as well. Like you can see here how they're coming up with ideas on how to improve and making tests. So it's really nice to see the process, the thinking behind these contributions, and sometimes referencing like tutorials that they see online to improve everything. Really cool. Yeah. Thanks Trevize, thanks Erizzo Albuquerque, and thanks LP Chao, who's working on the animations for this character. And then we have other contributions for the white boxing as well. You were saying, Amel? Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go on. The white boxing one.
No, I was just saying. We have also like activity on that front. So I'm also gonna merge this into the white boxing branch. I don't have it right here because there's no image in the PR. But as you can see, there's so much activity on the... Tell me.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there is an image on the forum. But I was going to say, this is fantastic. But then you started showing something else. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to interrupt.
No worries. I just wanted to go very quickly through all of them because there's so much. But we cannot like... we don't have time to show everything in detail, but also like some of them are not merged yet. That's why I'm not, but I need to get on it. But super great stuff from the community. And also it's nice to show how I think there's different levels of contributions that people can make, from very complex ones to very simple ones. In past episodes, we've shown people that made PRs that were like 1 line of code or 2 lines of code. Super appreciated as well. It's not because they're less code that they are less valuable, especially when they're bug fixes. So, all right, cool. I'm gonna look at the responses of the poll again.
Someone has definitely rigged it, I think.
So actually it's equalizing. So it's going towards like 50-50. Interesting.
That's interesting. I think
what
they're
if
both
we
super
have
important topics. Oh, go on.
Sorry. Sorry, I said, what if we have like 50-50? Do we discuss both?
No, I don't want to say that because then the people are gonna organize to do that, and then we have to do double work. No, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe. we will.
Chiro is gonna like go in the night before and be like, which one should I talk about?
Yeah,
and then and then go the other way.
No, I never do these things.
Well, yet.
All right, cool. I think we're getting towards the end. There's just one last thing that Amel, I'll give you the floor again.
Yeah, I was like, is it the time to reveal the cards, Chiro? Your favorite part of every stream, I guess.
It is a fun part, yeah. And I think it is time to reveal the new tasks.
Yes.
So let's do that. So this is the roadmap for the game. You've seen it many times, but you've seen the public side. And now this is the private side, which is where I can control all the things. And I have a little deck here, which is called Archive, where I stack like tasks that come to my mind and that we need to work on. So this is the stuff that it's kind of like a backlog that I'm gonna unleash on the roadmap. And then we're gonna come up with new stuff as well, because we need some kind of like revisions on different systems. But I need to write a few details before that. As you can see, some of them are bugs. Unfortunately, that's what happens when you make games. So you have this thing, which is an issue that I noticed on the way our input system is working with the state machine. So for instance, here what happens is that the input is cached when it's not immediately consumed by a state. What it means that if I'm walking or if I'm jumping, for example, and I press a button to talk, as soon as I land, the character will talk. And this is a bug, of course. So this needs to be fixed. And this is red because it's a critical one. It's an important one, actually. So I'll put this in the bug stack.
It could be a special ability though, right? So just put it in the game feature.
No, don't listen to Andy. Fix it, please.
I'm joking.
It's a bug, not a feature. This is like the reverse of the joke when people say like it's a feature, not a bug. Then there's a long-standing one, which is not a bug, but I really want to make the outline effect less resolution dependent. It's really important because it gives a very different feeling depending on whether it's like a small screen or a high resolution screen. So this is super important, and I want to put this into the shading deck. Then we have there's some erratic behavior on the mouse pointer when you right click and you rotate the camera. Again, this I think depends on the width of the window, and it's how the basically how the coordinates are calculated, and this should be really easy to fix. That's why I put it as a good first task. So if you wanna, if you're looking for something potentially easy to do, I'll just put it in here. Then we have something which is a graphic issue, which is explained in here, but basically when we bake light maps, there's a bluish tint on the environment, and I can actually show this to you in Unity, I think. By going to the scene called Testing Ground. 3, 2, 1. Okay, it's ready. So if you go to, for example, where this direction signs is, you can see this kind of like a stain on the ground, and that's kind of like my mistake. It's how we simplify the light map. So if you look at the light map, there is some shadow there, and for the way the shader works, that creates like this stain, which is bluish in this case, and it's really ugly. So we need to fix it somehow. So that's gonna go into the bugs, and it's a graphic bug, and I think it's relatively easy. I wrote some description in it, so take a look at it. Then we have another bug. No, I fixed this one. I think I fixed this one. So
you
I'll
covertly left it there just to say on the stream that you fixed a bug, Chiro, and then delegate tasks, everyone else.
Where is it? Okay, it's here. I'm gonna mark it as in progress by me.
Okay.
But please take a look and let me know if you think it's fixed. Sorry. Improving the effects of point lights. Point lights look decent right now. You can see an example. I mean, actually, if you just create one point light,
Mhm.
you just bring it down to the ground, to the rocks. So
Okay.
as you can see, they look decent, but I think we can do better. And let me know what you think. But I think something can be done about because as you can see, one issue that I have with these point lights is that, the way we treat them. And again, this is in the shader. The thing is, the size of this circle, which is drawn on the ground or on the objects, depends on the brightness of the color.
Mhm.
And it's a bit strange. Like, I would want to see colors affect things less, but the circle be more or less the same size, because this can create like some weird behavior. As you can see, we cannot have colors that are like a certain tone, and then you need to like use the intensity to make it brighter. So there's something which can be tweaked, I think. Interesting task, and I put it as good first task if you're a technical artist or a graphics programmer interested in these things. So I'll put this one in 3D and shading. Oh my god, we have so many. Outline is doubled when two dynamic objects overlap. So if you have two dynamic objects, like a character and an item, and they have an outline, you can notice how the character has an outline which is one width, but when the arm is overlapping with the character, then you have a double outline. And this is okay. It's not a super big deal, and that's why I marked it as minor. But it's something to keep in mind. I like to keep track of things. I don't want to lose track of anything in this project. So I'll put it in the bugs. Avoid spamming particles on sliding. I actually made a YouTube video for this. So you will notice that when the character jumps around and it slides, the particles are like super spammed.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
This reminds me of any Mario game, like Mario Sunshine, where you even tiptoe and particles spam. Right?
No, but this does it when it's sliding. So you see that I walk up the rock and then I slide down, and the state machine has a particular state for sliding, and then it spams these particles. And again, these are all things that we can discuss. I just thought of noting them down, making a video of the issue, and this would go into programming, into code. So up to you to figure out how to fix this. Sync amount of landing particles to fall speed. This means that if you make I don't know if I can play the game now because I messed up with the project quite a lot, so I don't know if it's gonna work. Yeah, it's working. So you see how if I make like a high jump, the character basically always releases the same amount of particles. So now if I jump down, there's like that amount of particles, but if I make a small jump, then he also creates a lot of particles. Do we want to sync the amount of particles that get created to this height?
I would say yes, personally.
Yeah, I think there is something there.
Maybe also the velocity that you're traveling at before you collide something.
Yeah, exactly. But it needs to be wired in, right? Actually, I'm going to show you the bug that I mentioned before. So you see, like if I jump and if I'm walking even, and I press the button to talk, he doesn't talk. But as soon as I stop, he talks. Right. So that's the caching issue that I was mentioning before. So syncing amount of particles goes into the programming code. There we go. Oof, so many. The replacement tool, the one that replaces game objects in the scene with prefabs, it doesn't replace it with instances of the prefabs, but it replaces with just game objects. So this needs to be fixed. It's a bug on the tool, goes into the bug pile. Very easy to fix, up to you to figure out. Then we have the boat. The boat is currently marooned. Andy, how do you say this? Sinking, yeah.
It's like not acting at how a boat should be. It's like just a bit of word for it.
Do you say marooned? Is that the right verb?
Sinking would be, yes.
Okay.
I think Amel said it, yeah.
So the boat is basically, you know, it's a very normal thing, of course. Like you put it in the water, and then the water goes through and shows through the boat. And we don't want that. Like, we want to simulate the idea that the boat is pushing the water around. And so the way you do this is you just hide the water that's inside. And for this, I'm going to give a small spoiler or a direction if you want. You will basically use URPs built in, what are they called? I always forget. Render passes. No, this is the post-processing. These ones. So, you know, if you're looking to do this, this is the way to do it. Hiding the water where the boat is. No more spoilers. Actually, yeah, so this is marked as a good first task. I'm going to add some more details into the card. And so I'm going to put this card into 3D and shading. Bloop. And the last one is a silhouette pass for when the player is obstructed by scenery. So we had an issue in the game open on the project for a while. It says character gets occluded by the environment. And some people wanted to fix it with Cinemachine. They wanted to add like a Cinemachine collider to push the camera away from, we have a long history with this issue, to push the camera away from the geometry. But the way I think this should be fixed is exactly like this user was suggesting here. So to have a shader which draws something on screen when the character is obstructed. I think this is Overwatch. So we can do that as well with the custom render passes, and I think it's a good task to start. So I'm gonna put it into the 3D and shading pile. And Treviso, if you're listening, don't take the easy ones. Like you know, leave them to somebody else.
It's worth mentioning that with that pass-through effect or stencil effect, there are some videos that already do something like that, but they probably need to be configured, and that's also something. You know, you're not going to get instances where you can just drag and drop code
exactly.
or a shader.
I linked on the forums a tutorial by Brackeys. There was a good tutorial by Brackeys, but as you said, like that, it doesn't do exactly what we want to do. So let's tweak it for chop, basically.
Yeah.
That's going to be the case a lot of the time. Like for any tools, you're going to have to make some slight modifications, and then it would fit.
Yeah, somebody on the chat is saying you could also do dithering or some sort of transparency on objects occluding the player. Yeah, you could also. Yeah, it's true. You could also kind of like reveal the player by hiding the object that's blocking it.
There's a lot of VR games that do that. When you put your head too close to a rock, it like peels back like the camera position. So I guess you could use.
I like the. I don't know. Let's experiment. Actually, you know, like make the thing, open a PR, and let's review it together. Maybe we're gonna show it on the next live stream.
Yeah.
And with this, I think we're there, right?
Yeah. I think
it's time to say goodbye for another episode.
Chiro is very sad, so we are.
Yeah, you know, I have fun. Is there still people listening? Are people listening?
Yes, in the chat.
How was it, Andy? This is the first time you are.
Yeah, Andy, will you be back?
You start talking about bugs, and I like to avoid those, so I'm avoiding that. Well, it was a lot of fun to be part of this. Like, this is obviously a project that you three are all very heavily involved with, and I'm working on some other things. So it's been fun to sort of come and contribute, and I've learned a lot by seeing all the amazing stuff people are making, and it'd be great to like just keep developing things, and then if I build or add any other tool functionality, I'd like to chip back in or show it. It depends. Are you going to do like regular guests, like contributors? Is this a normal thing?
You mean on the live streams?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, whoever made something cool, we would love to have them on stream to show something. Of course, with the community, it's a bit harder because we need to get legal approval. But I would love to invite somebody from the community. We'll find a way. I'll find a way. But Andy, if you want to join us again for the next live stream, you're welcome.
I'll lurk the chat and I'll make a fake account and just throw some curveball questions.
To reply to somebody in the chat, the next live stream is in 2 weeks, exactly 2 weeks from now. So same time, Tuesday. For us, it's 7 p.m. in Copenhagen. For you, depends on where you are. But YouTube is gonna give you, the time. So we'll share the page on the forums, on Twitter, on everywhere, and you're gonna see the timing in the page, and you can how do you say, not subscribe, but like sign up for a notification when the live stream goes live.
Enable notifications. Yep.
Any last words?
It's been awesome having you, Andy.
Yeah, thanks for having me join. It's been a lot of fun. I'll lurk the comments after the stream's up, and if people have other questions or want to talk about stuff, I'll respond there, and obviously in the forums too.
And I'm actually very curious to see what people suggest for the issue that we saw when you were making the demonstration. So I'm interested in seeing the different approaches that people will take on the forums.
Someone will make the most perfect thing in about an hour, and I'll cry myself to sleep tonight. So. No, I'm joking. It's all good. Like this is how we all learn, right? We all help each other, and
if you one up us on anything on this project, I will only be happy. Like I don't care when somebody, I'm actually learning some stuff. I'm not omniscient, and so are the others. So. People came on the project with very clever solutions and sometimes putting us into place in some way. So that's super cool, I think. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If I can ask you just one favor to the people that are still listening. Once the live stream ends, the chat is going to close and then the video is going to be baked, right? And it's going to be watchable. If you can leave a comment after the live stream and tell us what do you think of the live stream, if you like it, and if there's something we need to improve, if there's something you want us to change. If you find it too technical or not too technical, not technical enough, we would love to hear that. So if you can deposit that comment, not in the chat, not in the live chat right now, but in the comments when the video is ended and is available as a replay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes, that would be great.
A final goodbye from me. Bye.
Yeah.
Shema.
Bye.
Amel.
Goodbye, everyone. See you on the forum.
Andy.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye, everyone. Love you. And bye.